Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's interaction. It's an honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Rajan Sethuraman, the Chief Executive Officer of LatentView Analytics, a global leader in data science and a trusted partner to the world's most recognized brands. Mr. Rajan has been at the helm of LatentView Analytics since April 2019, steering the company through significant growth and transformation. As CEO, Mr. Rajan has spearheaded LatentView's transition into a strategic consulting partner and the switch to a PLC, which saw LatentView's remarkable success at his IPO launch. Through his direction, he emphasizes on deep industry expertise, domain-specific solutions, and a consultative approach to solving complex business challenges. His leadership is marked by a focus on strategic growth, talent acquisition, and embracing technological advancements, especially in areas like generative AI, to maintain a competitive edge and deliver superior business outcomes. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rajan Sethuraman, a visionary leader and strategic thinker, as we look forward to gaining his insights into the future of data analytics and the transformative power of decision making systems. Thank you, Mr. Rajan, for being here with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So, Mr. Rajan, could you share with us your journey to becoming the CEO of LatentView Analytics?
Okay, it's a long one. I started off as a management consultant with Accenture, then known as Arthur Anderson and Company. I was part of the Anderson Consulting practice. Spent about 20 years with them overall, but in my earlier years was focused on management consulting work, solving performance improvement, cost reduction, supply chain, process reengineering problems for companies in India, as well as multinationals with operations in India. So that's a lot of field work that I did, working in the shop floor, in the factories, in the mines, in the terminals and depots of oil and gas companies, and so on. So that was about 15, 16 years. My last 5 years were spent more in an internal role, helped with talent acquisition and talent management, and then later on led learning and development for one of Accenture's businesses globally. So when I joined LatentView Analytics, I actually joined as a chief people officer, right, in 2016, a role which I held for the first 3 years. And in April of 2019, as you pointed out, I took up as the CEO.
See.
For me, LatentView was very exciting because it was a combination of all the problem solving and consulting work I did in the first 15 years, uh, but clubbing that with the analytical rigor that I was able to bring into the talent management practices of Accenture. The last 5 years is when I got seriously introduced into mathematical modeling and statistics because we were hiring about 2,000 people a month at that time. And we were trying to solve a lot of problems related to reneg, attrition, leadership planning, succession planning, and so on. And that's when the math modeling came
Yeah.
to a great deal of help. So, in some sense, when I came on board at LatentView, it was a good mix of all the fuzzy problem solving that I was used to in my consulting days, but clubbing that with the power of data and analytics. Yeah, so that's been my journey into LatentView Analytics, and I felt that it was a good culmination of all that I had done right in my earlier years.
Yeah, that's been a wonderful journey. I think it's a perfect mix from your previous work experience to the current post you're at now. So, for those new to Latent View, could you explain what the core mission is of the company?
Right. So as you pointed out, we work with Fortune 500 companies largely, helping them use the data that not only they are collecting, but that data that is now available in the public domain. It could be social media, could be other research, could be secondary research as well as primary research that organizations are doing. And how do you use all of that information to create better value for their clients, right? Whether they are a services company or whether they're a products company, organizations are always looking to find better ways by which they can come up with newer innovations, how they can appeal to the correct target segments, how they can put the right kind of offers and promotions and discounts in front of those people so that they can encourage them, right, to use their product and services to maintain a competitive edge, right? Of course, there's a very broad spectrum of companies, right? On the one hand, you have companies like Amazon or Netflix, for example, that for whom data and analytics is the core of the business, their model, right? That's how they differentiate themselves. There are also more traditional companies, right? Whether it's in the banking, financial sectors, or whether it's even in CPG retail, for example, or industrials and manufacturing. What we help organizations do is to help understand the possibilities from a data analytics standpoint and put together the kind of platforms that can, one, help them bring together the data that they are interested in analyzing, and then also using that data to deliver very powerful use cases in terms of business impact. They're either trying to increase their top line, or they're trying to cut costs so that there's an impact on the bottom line. A lot of the work that we do is at the front end of the value chain. So customer and marketing analytics makes up a big chunk of the work that we do, starting with segmentation, micro segmentation, cross sell, upsell opportunities, loyalty, personalization. Then moving on to media mix modeling, right? How much money do you spend on different media channels that you have, right? Or general marketing return on investment improvement, right? Or promotion and discounts and so on. We do quite a bit of work in supply chain related to demand forecasting, inventory management, on-shelf availability, right, for retail and consumer good companies. And then the rest of the work is in the area of fraud, risk, financial
Okay.
analytics, related to regulatory compliance as well. And then also finally in the area of people analytics, which is where I started my analytics journey, right, related to, as I said, attrition, employee engagement, and motivation, right. So everywhere there is data today, right? Organizations are increasingly using digital channels to interact with their customers, with their stakeholders, with their employees, and every such interaction generates a lot of data. And we are in the business of helping them analyze the data, right, so that they can make good use of it, right, in terms of driving their business processes.
Yeah. So, like you had mentioned, that businesses using data analytics have a competitive advantage. So, for businesses that are not using it, are they clearly at a disadvantage?
I think
So,
in today's day and age, absolutely yes, right?
okay,
Unless they are sitting in some whatever, right, corner where they're not impacted by all of this technology, and I would find it very surprising, right, if there are companies that can say that we don't need
data
all this data
analytics.
analysis. As I said, most interactions, right, between people and processes, between people and machines and processes, right, all of these are intermediated through digital channels today. And every time there is a digital interaction, you generate a lot of data. And if you're not making use of the data to understand behavior, whether it's human behavior or process behavior or machine behavior, you will be at a competitive disadvantage, right?
True.
In
Yeah.
comparison to others who are using it.
So, generally, how has the market for data analytics progressed over time? So, as you've seen in the Indian scenario as well, so like you had mentioned, the market was still fragmented. So, how would you say how do you evaluate the current global trends in today's current scenario?
Right. So we did a bit of an analysis prior to our IPO in the November 21 time frame, at which point we could see that one, the growth has been fairly significant, right, in the years leading up to that point in time. But it was going to be even more spectacular in the years to come, right? We were at about 170, $180 billion, right, in terms of the total market for data analytics services, and it was projected to grow to 300 plus
Oh,
$1 billion, right, in a 3-4 year time frame, right, at a compounded annual growth rate of 18 to 20%. And within that, there are specific pockets of work, right, like advanced predictive analytics was expected to grow, even faster, and there were certain sectors that were already spending money, and they were expected to grow faster, right. So we did when we did the IPO, we took all of that information into account, right, even in terms of formulating what should be our business strategy, right, in the years going ahead. Uh, Broadly, I mean, the other point that I always talk about is that most organizations, even though they have all this data that is now available to them, they're only scratching the surface in terms of how they actually make use of the data, right, to run their
true.
business processes. So there is plenty of potential. All the IT work that has happened in the last 3 decades, starting from pre Y2K, right? I mean, that's a problem that IT companies initially grappled with, right? When we were cutting over from the 1990s to the 2000s. From that time on, all the IT work that's been done, it's created plenty of systems of record, wherein you're able to use those technology and the systems to collect data. But how will you use the data to drive your decision making? That's the opportunity that lays ahead.
True. So, about the Indian market as well, since we've seen tremendous growth in the Indian economy, so how would you say the data analytics market is in the country?
I
And
think the maturity levels of Indian companies are also going up significantly. Of course, again, there'll be a spectrum of companies, companies that are born in the digital age, like a Flipkart, for example, right? Or a Ola Electric, right? I mean, they will be looking at how they make use of data analytics to a very great extent, right? And then there'll be more traditional companies that might be a little behind. But in general, even in the last 2-3 years, we have seen that there is a lot of interest in making use of high quality analytical processes and approaches to drive better decision making, right, within Indian companies. So whatever I said about the global companies will apply to the Indian context as well. There are some companies that are already significantly mature in terms of using data analytics to drive their business decision making. I would expect that that will catch up even more right in the coming
Okay.
years.
So, and specific to LatentView, I'd seen that US made up for 95% of its revenue segments. So, and India accounted for about 2 to 3%. So, how do you expect India to grow? Can we see that number touch 5 to 10% in the coming years?
Yeah, it's a bit of an experiment that we are running. I mean, given the size of our company and the limitation in terms of leadership time and bandwidth, we took a conscious decision that we will focus on US and Europe, right? In fact,
Okay.
US is still our mainstay. Europe, we have been doubling down on in the last 12, 18 months. India, APAC is still a number three at this point in time. We did kick off an experiment, and this year, the year that just ended, we did have two, three accounts where we were able to do some work. And we'll be continuing to work with those clients in the coming year as well. But how fast it will grow and how quick we will get to a 5-10% mark, right? I mean, I still don't have a handle on that. It'll take some time for us to also better understand the market, right, in terms of what kind of investments we want to make here
Okay.
to sustain the growth. India is also a very competitive field. I mean, all the all the large systems integration firms, even the companies like Capgemini or an Accenture, they all have huge presence in India, and therefore the dynamics of this market are very different. So we'll have to
Okay.
understand that better, right, before we finalize our strategy, right,
Okay.
for the Indian
And
market.
to enter the market. What are the key challenges in data analytics specific to LatentView?
I wouldn't say that challenges are specific to us. I mean, most other organizations that are in the data analytics space, they will be facing these challenges. The first is just the quality of the data itself, right? I mean, as I mentioned, organizations collect a lot of data, but the data is often fragmented, right? It is in different silos in different systems, and then you also need to look into the quality of the data itself. I mean, there's no point in like doing analysis on data that you are not confident about, right? Because then it's going to give you the wrong answers. So that is a big issue. The other thing is that organizations need to have at least a reasonable understanding, right, of what kind of business problems they want to solve, right, what use cases they would like to address. Otherwise, you'll just end up boiling the ocean, right? I mean, there's a lot of data, but
True.
your analysis needs to have a specific objective, right? So how you set up your use cases, what kind of hypothesis you have in mind, that could be very important. And for people to be able to come up with those hypotheses and use cases, there needs to be a basic level of familiarity with data, right? And what is the potential, right, using analytics. Change management is another thing, right? Even if you do high quality data analytics and you come up with like very specific recommendations, the willingness of organizations to take that
True.
and then implement that and make
Yeah.
decisions using that, that can be a challenge, right? Even in very sophisticated fields and areas, sometimes you face resistance saying that this is how we have done it in the past. Why do I need you to come and tell no, that I should be doing something different, right? So those challenges will be there. But other than that, management support, sponsorships, right? I think that can be a very important aspect as well. There are organizations where they have publicly stated, right, that all of their decision making will be using data, right? Adobe, for example, is a client that we work with. They're very famous for their data-driven operating model, right? And every meeting, unless people quantitatively demonstrate why they are saying what they are saying and why they are asking for what they are asking, decisions don't get
True.
made, right? So it depends on the maturity level of the organization as well, right, where they are in the spectrum.
Another thing I had noticed was also that the revenue year on year growth was increasing by 32% in your latest annual report. However, the PAT margins and the EBITDA margins had been falling. So, what could be the reason for this actually, and how do you
So
tackle this?
we have been a very conservative company in the past in terms of saying that we just put on our head and do our work, and the work will speak for itself, and that a lot of the new work that we win, right, revenue and growth will come through referrals and word of mouth. But we also realized on the back of our IPO that there's an opportunity for us to create more visibility, right, in the market, whether it's with clients or whether it's with talent. So in the last couple of years, we've been ramping up on the investments that we make on that front, right? Hiring more people in sales and marketing and business development, making investments also on the talent front, marketing as well, right, in terms of events and so on. And obviously, that is eating away a little bit at the margins. But that's a conscious call that we have made, saying that if we improve our visibility a bit and we spend some money on those areas, then it can actually accelerate the growth even more for us. So it's and there is a lag effect. I mean, meaning that you cannot expect that you start hiring salespeople today and then tomorrow immediately you will have revenue growth. there is a bit of time. There is also a learning process for us, right, in terms of what kind of investments are really working and which of them are not firing. So we are currently in that phase. Obviously, the expectation is that these investments will accelerate growth even more for us, right, in the coming years.
True, this is actually a great sign of experience management where you're actually like willing to cut down on some margins, but you're looking for long-term growth, so that's not a real problem for you.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that is super important. I mean, for organization because you don't want to be boasting of 40%, 30%
True.
margins and say that, you know what, I mean, I'm not improving your earnings per share. At the end of the day, I mean, once you become a public listed company, shareholders are looking for shareholder value creation, right? And that is always in the back of earning per share. And earnings per share has to increase
Over time.
consistently over a period of time. So that's what we
True.
are looking at.
So now looking at the market as well, so how easily can data analytics adapt to the newer technology? Because as you've also said that in this changing world, it's important to adapt to certain scenarios. So how would you say that data analytics is adapting to the technology?
So I would say that the data analytics space is actually at the cutting edge and leading edge, right? I mean, these days everybody talks about NVIDIA and GPUs, right? I mean, they've
Yeah.
been in the news for the last month, more so, right, on the back of stock price appreciation and so on. Everything is coming to a point in some sense, right? Because a lot of the new use cases, especially with the real-time streaming data coming in, you need more powerful processors, right, to be able to handle all of the data. That's just a case in point, right? In general, data analytics tends to be at the cutting edge of all the new technological innovations that are happening, and that is what makes this field very interesting for us as well. I mean, we might have used a certain kind of an algorithms tend to be a bit more stable, right, on the math and the statistical and the modeling front, but the technologies that you can use either to store data or process data and compute, they keep rapidly evolving, and that makes the field exciting because people in this field also that way get to learn new things, right? Every 6 months they will have to reinvent themselves, right, in terms of what are the latest technologies that are available. You would have heard of data storage and access technologies
Yeah.
in the hyper around hyperscalers such as Google Cloud Platform, GCP,
Okay.
or AWS, for example, or Microsoft Azure.
Yeah.
These days, people talk more about Snowflake and Databricks, for example, right? Now, of course, Microsoft is responding with Microsoft Fabric, right? Now, all of this is happening in a very dynamic fashion. So every 6 months, you're going to see something new, and
True.
it's important for you to stay in touch with that. That also drives our own people engagement strategies and our learning and development strategies, right? I mean, constantly we need to keep refreshing the skill sets and the competencies that our people have. But that's what makes it exciting. Yeah.
So, and earlier you had mentioned about your acquisition of Decision Point. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So, could you talk more specifically on the whole process and how you acquired the company?
Yeah, it's a fairly long, drawn out and involved process. I had mentioned this in the media interactions as well. Uh, the whole inorganic growth strategy was a commitment that we had made publicly, right, when we did our IPO, and we did set aside a certain sum of money for driving inorganic growth because we realized that the space is vast. I mean, we had very strong capabilities in the technology and the digital native space, but our presence in areas like BFSI, banking, financial services, or consumer packaged goods, it is fairly small. So one is like we wanted to use the inorganic growth route to scale up in those industries, but we are also looking at inorganic growth as a way by which we can build capabilities, right? Capabilities that we don't have, but which are very relevant, right, to the clients that we are trying to serve. This particular opportunity, Decision Point, I mean, they do a lot of work for CPG companies in revenue growth management, and that's what really attracted us to them. They also have a very strong Gen AI driven solution, one called Beagle GPT.
Okay.
And that's also proving to be a very important arrowhead for them, and which we believe, right, can open doors for other accounts also. But it was a fairly long process. I think we would have evaluated almost 50 different opportunities over the
Oh,
last two
okay.
years. Some of them we are able to eliminate quickly because no, there is you can make out no, there is no fit initially. But some of them we took it all the way to a letter of intent,
Okay.
and then we did due diligence, and then certain things click and certain things don't click. As with any M&A, I mean, it is not just about the business that they are doing and the profitability and the growth. It's also about cultural fit and alignment. So unless the cultural fit is good, it is very hard for you to realize the synergies that could come, right, from that acquisition. So we were particular about that, right? And I believe that Decision Point has all the right ingredients in terms of cultural fit and alignment, and hopefully that will play out for us, right, in the coming years.
So, like you yourself had stated that it took you about 2 years to complete the selection criteria, and it was about 50 companies that you shortlisted, and with a letter of intent as well. So, how do you actually finalize on the company itself? And despite the media pressure that it was creating, so how do you finalize at the end that this was the company to go for?
Yeah. So we evaluated about 50 companies. I mean, we didn't do a letter of intent for all of them. I mean, we would have done it for about two, three companies. The letter of intent is kind of like comes at a later point in time, right, in the process. Uh, Obviously, I mean, once we made it public that we were also looking at inorganic growth, we did start getting a lot of inquiries, right, from companies that were interested, right, in selling out, or there are multiple third parties, right, that could help you with this. Investment bankers are there, right? There are people who specialize in mergers and acquisitions and helping identify opportunities. We also engaged an external firm to help us identify the kind of targets that we were interested in, right? Because it had to be aligned with which industries we focused on, the kind of capabilities that we wanted to build, which geographies we were interested in, right? And the problems that we wanted to solve. So all of that formed the initial framework and the set of criteria. So some of the opportunities that came to us, it was a very easy elimination. But in many instances, we had to dig deeper. Right, you spend time talking to the management of that company. You understand what their philosophy is. Why are they looking for money? Right, what is stopping them from growing on their own? Right, how will it help them if we acquire them? Right, and they become part of us. So you'll have to take all of that into account. Plus, given that we were a very profitable company from the outset, we wanted to make sure that the acquisition is not going to be dilutive, right, in terms of EBITDA margins and earnings per share. And we want to make sure that it's aligned with our philosophy around profitability. These days, I mean, you do see a lot of acquisitions that are happening on the back of just revenue growth alone, right? And it could be relevant in certain industries. Given that we were in the services space and data analytics was a premium service offering, we wanted it to be a very profitable acquisition as well. Of course, time will tell, right, in terms of how we are able to realize the synergy benefits, right, that we are expecting from this. But the going in criteria were fairly rigorous that way, right, and that's what helped us in cutting through all the clutter that was there and then zeroing on. Even after you identify somebody that meets all of that criteria, there is still a lot of interaction and discussion that is required. One, just in terms of the business due diligence itself, right? Because we need to be able to understand, absorb that capability, and then use it from our standpoint. But then there is also legal, there is other financial due diligence, right? You need to understand how they've been accounting for revenue, for example, whether it matches the standards that are expected of a public limited company, right? All of that plays out. So that's the long process.
True. So when now I hear this from you, so I understand the importance of an experience management which is necessary for all these new startups and businesses. Like you yourself had mentioned, all these overvaluations and going in and recklessly buying, it's all ultimately leading to the downfall of these businesses. So when you say it and you prioritize like not diluting your shares and the EPS,
Right.
so it's really important by prioritizing your shareholders and the best interest of the company rather than for your own personal interest. So I think it's a really commendable job what you're doing with your experience management.
No, thank you. I think there is a saying. I mean, I don't know who said this, but they say chase value and not valuation. Right?
True.
If you chase value as in client value creation and creating value for your employees, then the valuation will be a consequence of that, right? If you do the right things there,
It
if
will
you
follow.
instead dilute your focus on that and then start running after your valuations, then it can become a downfall.
True. So can you talk about any upcoming economic sectors or industries that you believe will be transformed by data analytics?
I think most spaces today, right, there is a play of data analytics in some form or the other, right? I think, I mean, name any sector, right? Entertainment to education, for example, right? I mean,
Everything
you see
uses.
data analytics being used significantly. Some of the traditional sectors have been a little slower in terms of the degree of sophistication that might be in place. But I think every industry has the potential and the opportunity, right? See, at the end of the day, we are in the business of understanding behavior, right? Human behavior in particular, right? It's a very very complex topic because we do modeling and meta modeling, right, and multi level depth modeling, because you ask a question, right, and I'm responding to you, right. I'm also thinking about what is it going to trigger in your mind, right, and therefore I will have to moderate my response, right, in
To
line
match
with
it.
that. And all human interaction is like that, right? You're not just thinking about what you're going to say, you're also thinking about what is the effect it is going to have on the other person, and then you modify your behavior, right, in line with that. And there are several layers of depth that is involved in that. So data analytics helps reveal to a certain extent, but it is a very, very complex topic, right? And therefore the sophistication levels will only increase in the coming years in terms of how all of the data analytics can help unravel, right, some of the things that we do. Of course, there are people who say that this will all get solved in the next few years, right, and then there will be no need for people to do anything, right, and they have doomsday and those kind of scenarios that they are painting. But I personally believe that with all of the stuff that is happening, it will open up more possibilities for organizations, for people as well, as consumers, as stakeholders and shareholders, as employees, right, as citizens, as patients, right, using a healthcare system. Everybody will look for more personalized interactions on the back of the data that they are sharing about themselves, right, and that'll come out in good stead.
So all these personalized interactions and interactions with the clients itself, are these the factors that really differentiate Latent View from its competitors?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we would all like to claim that our interactions are more personalized, that we understand the clients better and the business is better. I think for us, the differentiators have been more in terms of our appreciation of the technology that drives a lot of the stuff. I mean, we learned our data analytics working with the top tech companies in the world, right? Even today, 65% of our business comes from the West Coast and the Silicon Valley, right? We work with
True.
clients and companies there, and these are the people who are inventing the next new, right? I talked about GCP, for
Yeah.
example, right? I talked about Snowflake and Databricks, right? I mean, they are coming up with the new technologies, right, that will drive the space. And working with them gives us the insight and the understanding on how a lot of these things can be applied to many other industries as well. So we take a lot of confidence that way, right? That we are hearing it from the horse's mouth, right? We are learning from the best that is there, right? And we help those companies, right, apply their technologies to their own businesses. So I think that is a fairly important differentiating factor. The other thing is that we've been in business for 16 years. So we've been able to take that and encapsulate a lot of that learning into the solutions, the assets, right, and the products that we are building. And I think that will help create a bit of non-linearity. It will help create opportunity for more rapid delivery, right, of business impact and solutions. So we look at that as well, right, as an important differentiator. And of course, I mean, people, right? I mean, if you hire the right people and you empower them, and you make sure that they are exposed to the kind of opportunities, on the demand side, but also in terms of equipping them with the learning and training that is necessary to perform well. Those are all the things that will stand us in good stead. So I would say that those are the main differentiators, right, that
Okay,
we would like to talk about.
great. And finally, what guidance would you offer young driven entrepreneurs in the context of our swiftly evolving tech landscape? So, is this rapid pace of change a hurdle or a benefit? And what strategy should they adopt to align themselves more effectively?
Yeah, it's a question that I get asked in multiple other forums, especially in educational institutions, universities, and so on, because this whole entire space is seeing a fairly rapid evolution. I mean, we are all used to the model where you go to college and university, spend 20 years, right, learning something, right, maybe even getting a PhD, and then eventually coming back and then saying that, okay, now I get to work, right, I'll apply all the knowledge that I've learned. Today the scenario is very different. I mean, what you have learned 3 years back, if it has become outdated, right, in terms of
Yeah.
technology, may not be relevant, but it could have still given you a foundation, right, for learning new skills. So cross skilling, upskilling yourself, and staying in touch with what is happening, right, that is super important in that kind of a scenario. I think what can help, right, as a strategy for budding entrepreneurs is to pick problems that are relevant, right, problems that are socially relevant, that are relevant to companies, that are relevant to people, right? And then focus more on the business problem that they want to solve. I think the technologies will evolve and change. You shouldn't worry too much about it. But if you have a good grip on the problem and the approach you want to take to problem solving, whenever there is a change in the technology, whenever there is a faster way of doing things, you can still take it and integrate, right, into the solution that you are providing. I wouldn't want people to get therefore enamored with the technology and say that no, I will build a solution on some platform technology, right, and I'll get wedded to that. What I would instead encourage more is that, pick a problem that is relevant in the context today, find the best way of solving it today, right, and then that is your entrepreneurial idea then, right. And once you have that, then technological progress that happens and other things you will always be able to take them and integrate it because you are laser sharp. You focus on the problems that you want to
True.
go after.
Thank you, Mr. Rajan, for your time and your guidance, and it's really been an eye-opening session for both me and the viewers. So we wish all the best for you and your company's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. I really appreciate the opportunity to always engage with young minds. Thank you for bringing me on to this interaction, and wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Take care.